All right, welcome back to the show. I've just got to say it. Today's guest nails what's best for the patient is best for business. I mean, let's face it. I tell you, I'm timestamp. I swear, all these shows I'm timestamping because I'm going to go back and listen to all these in about 5 years, maybe 2 years. We'll talk a little bit. I think the ramp up is going to be a lot quicker. But Andrew Gorecki, just pronounce it. It's said like you like it's
You
spelled.
did good, man.
Welcome back to the show. And
Yeah, man.
we are December 2025. I ran into Andrew at PPS, and he was speaking on RTM, Remote Therapeutic Monitoring. And he's been here before, and I was like, we got to get you back on the show because I wanted him to share his findings. I wanted him to share what he's continuing to learn in this space. We can talk about the new, there's some new Medicare guidelines that rolled out for July of 26. Neither one of us has read into it, but it's pretty obvious that everything is going in the direction. Andrew, why don't you share your story a little bit, how you got here, just so everybody understands the context, and then let's jump forward to PPS and go from there, if you don't mind.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. I'm a huge fan of your show. Been listening. I was even listening to your old podcast, man. I
Yeah,
go way
dude.
back.
Yeah.
And so I've been a fan for a long time. And my story, I guess I'm a private practice owner. So I've been in the outpatient orthopedic world since 2009. And I've always felt like patient education and engagement are the most important things, right? There's nothing more frustrating when patients aren't doing the things that you're teaching them and they're just coming in relying on your hands in those sessions. And so I go back to the days when I first started as a physical therapist, looking at the VHI, printed documents, giving people homework, and
Yeah.
that was kind of step one. And I kind of didn't really think that was the best. I mean, you're searching for things that aren't really what you're doing with the patient. So I remember taking the digital camera.
Yeah.
You remember the digital camera, right?
Yeah,
And
dude, all of it. Yeah.
right, taking the little SD card out of the camera, and then going to the computer and setting up these custom videos, and then I would save them in a library. And so I was kind of the weird guy doing that. And
Yeah.
I don't know, about 2016 or so, I just started grabbing patients' phones and recording videos, and that was cool. They liked it. The feedback was great, but it was weird. They'd come back and I would say, all right, well, a lot of times I would actually forget what I gave them. And so I would want to look at the video, right? And so
Yeah.
I would be scrolling through their like personal photos and seeing
That's
things you're not
great.
supposed to
Yeah.
see, right? And then you'd finally find the one you gave them 2 weeks ago or whatever. And so that's kind of where this all came from with the remote monitoring company now that I'm running, called Movement RX.
Hold on.
I think
Say the name
yeah,
again.
Movement RX.
Movement RX. Thank you. Go on.
Probably should have went with MRX, right? If I think back, but the domain was not available. But the idea to me at the time was, I get really irritated when patients think that we're teaching them tips, right? Like, oh, it's a good tip. No, this is a prescription, right? And so that's where that name came from for me, was like, I want people to think of it like an RX, a prescription of things that are really important, as equally as important as their heart medication, right? That's where my thought went with that.
Love it.
And so in 2000, I think 2016, 17, my business partner and I said, we started looking around at was there any apps that are available? And there were a few, but mainly they were like coaching, athletic coaching apps, like where you could, measure gait, and it had a lot of bells and whistles on there and then most of them were emailing the videos to the patient. And so I thought, what would it take to just make an app? And so we kind of started on that process. It took us a while, and we talked to a lot of different companies, and we're not web developers, app developers, but we found a great group that worked with us for a couple years. And so it was great because we used it with patients. They gave us a ton of feedback.
Yeah.
We had with 15 of our therapists also involved with kind of the beta testing over like a 2-year period of time. And so we were using it in our clinic for years and having a lot of success. I think we had about 7,000 patients that had used the app before RTM even came around in 2022.
That's great.
And so we were having some great success there. And, we added some engagement tools, meaning we could kind of, the second phase was like, oh, it'd be cool if we could actually see if the patient was watching these videos, right? And then phase three was like, oh, you know what? I have a sense that some of my staff members don't really care about making homework for people. And so then we said, all right, it'd be cool if we could see if our staff, who's doing what, right? Who's engaging with the patient the most. And so then we had a therapist go to in 2022. She's actually on she's the vice president of the Michigan Physical Therapy Association. So she was going to one of the conferences that were here in the state of Michigan, and she came back all jazzed up because she heard Rick go on to talk about RTM, these
Yeah.
new codes that are available. And it was about, I think, 3 or 4 months into 2022. So brand new, nobody had heard about it. I was actually surprised. I mean, I felt like, gosh, I should know about this. And she comes back in our leadership meeting and she's like, have you heard of this new program? Very similar to what we're going to talk about in a little bit here, which is this access program with Medicare. I just heard about it yesterday, so I'm
Yeah,
assuming it's
I
pretty
think two
brand new.
days ago I heard about it,
Yeah,
and it was just showing up in my LinkedIn feed like crazy. And then I saw
right.
BT sharing it. Yeah,
Yeah.
yep,
So she's like, hey, have you heard about this? And if not, it sounds like we're doing it already. We've been doing it for years, and now we can get paid for it. So I actually jumped on a Zoom with Rick, and we
well,
talked
hold on,
through it.
hold
And
on, hold
yeah,
on. I want to stop you right here,
yeah,
real quick. We don't have to go in the weeds, but so you're doing this
yeah,
for years,
for years. Yeah.
okay? Just bear with me on this. Then the conference, and you're hearing, hey, now we can bill for it. Yet you were already seeing the results of the work. So you were seeing
Right.
the results that, and I just want to throw this in there and we can move forward because you and I agree on this stuff, is you were seeing a reason to continue to do this because of arrivals, because of compliance, because of completed courses of care, because of increased attendance, correct?
Well, the crazy thing is, I would say in the beginning, it was kind of a self-serving thing, right?
Yeah,
Um,
right.
right. We
Yeah,
just thought it was a good idea, but
yeah.
then what we started to hear, I guess the first step was we started hearing it from the patients, and we actually
Yes.
started reading it in our Google reviews.
Yeah.
And we're like,
That's
wow, they're actually
awesome.
calling this out, right? They're saying that they like this.
Yeah.
That's something they appreciate. And then it isn't until, well, and then kind of during that period of time, we also were early adopters on the MIPS program. So right when the MIPS program launched, I don't know what year that was, but we
Yeah.
started tracking our outcomes and submitting it to the government, and with the hopes of, getting that plus 9% reimbursement. Again, we believe that what we're doing in our clinic is high quality. So we're like, well, if we really think it's high quality, let's participate with this voluntary program, right? So that was happening in the background even before
Yeah.
RTM.
Right. Right.
But yet, and we were getting scored from them, right? So we were getting a relatively high score. I think we were probably in the high 80s, low 90% score. So we were getting about a 7% increase in reimbursement, which we were proud of. But then we, moving back to the RTM, when RTM that first year, we jumped on it right away. We modified our system a little bit. We became FDA approved, all that. Well, then I battled with Blue Cross Blue Shield in Michigan because they had a policy right away that said, we're paying for this and here's what our policy is. But yet we weren't getting any reimbursement. Right. And so then we said, all right, well, I got about, maybe it was like, I don't know, 9, 10 months into the first year at RTM. I said to them, I was having weekly calls with the regional reps. You owe us like $75,000. What are we doing here? And I said, I think I'm going to stop offering this valuable service to your members. And they got on the phone and said, well, do you have any proof this is actually valuable?
Love this. Hold on. I want everybody
Right.
to get this. You went to them, said, we're doing this.
Mhm.
They didn't pay you. You're like, we're going to stop offering this to your customers, your clients. And then
Right.
they said, then they wanted proof. All right, go on. I
And
just
so I
want
was
people
like,
to,
well, you know what? Here I am going, well, we're still in kind of like step one, which is like, well, patients seem to like it. Right. And we had the engagement metrics where we could say, okay, the national average is like what? 30% of patients will engage with their home program. That's what studies show. And so we were able to show right away that, okay, we're about 50% right now. We were at the beginning, we were about 50% engagement. So we were already 20% higher. So we first threw that at them and they said, well, that doesn't really like make us that excited, right? That doesn't mean anything to us. So then I went to the next level and I said, all right, let's actually do a data analysis. So we took that first year of 2022 and we looked at all of our outcome scores. And like the standardized scores like OSWESTRI and the KOS for the knee and whatnot, all those. We said, okay, we have all that. We were reporting on like 97% of our patients. And so we simply said, all right, let's take all those scores and let's divide them up into the group that, and again, by the way, all patients were using the Movement RX platform, but only the RTM eligible people were turned on and then being monitored, and we're then forcing that engagement higher. Like we're calling them once a month, we're chatting with them through the app, we're telling them we're going to be watching this, we're getting consent from them. And so we looked at the two scores, or the two groups, we separated them, and it was very clear that
Yeah.
every single outcome score was higher in the group that was being monitored. So I submitted that to Blue Cross, and now the cool thing is for 2 years after that, they started paying it, but they required basically a medical manual review every time you submitted claims. We had to submit supporting documentation. Well, now 2025 is the first year they lifted that, and so now they're actually paying without any restriction. And I have to believe that is got to be partly what we were doing there with them, of
God,
just the constant,
100%.
and I'm the type of person, like, if I just won't give up, right? So like
Yeah.
I was going to take that one to the grave. And so we're
Well, I
now
really want people to hear that, I mean, that was, yeah, that was years. So it was years leading up to it.
right,
Fortunately, I like to say this, right? Fortunately, you had created a study, only,
right,
roughly, so many people were in this engagement model as opposed to just on the app. And then all of a sudden
right.
you pull it up and now you're like, here it is. Well, cool. We'll need it every time. And you're like, cool. We'll give it to you. And then play the game. This is the thing. Learn the rules. We say this.
Right.
You got to learn. You can't just call them and go, yeah, look, we're doing this, right? You got to prove it. And that's where we are with this, right?
Yeah, I think that's the key. And I think what I'm seeing a lot of people is backwards, right? They're looking at these as codes to bill, and they're not
Dude,
really
here we go.
understanding.
Here we go.
Yeah, they're
You're
not.
preaching. Yeah, you're preaching.
Right. And so like when I meet with clinics that we're giving them demos of the software, and we're talking about the service we provide. So we have software that we sell to clinics, but we also have a second package, which I would call the service end, where we have a team of remote PTAs across the country that are doing the monitoring, and we're teaching them how to engage with patients and how to do the phone calls and how to motivationally interview. And so when I'm talking to these clinics, I'm hearing, most of the time I'm talking to owners, and they're struggling, right? We're all struggling with reimbursement, and you know it's 40% down since when I opened in 2011. And so it's
Dude,
like, I
I,
get
I
it.
never saw it go up. I don't know why we act surprised every year.
Right.
It hasn't gone up in
Exactly.
34 years for me.
It's insane. And so you go, well, I see that driver, and it really depends on what group I'm talking to. If I'm talking to the owners, they seem to be more interested in the financial aspect of it. If I'm talking to a group of therapists, though, they don't care. Like if they're salaried PTs, they care more about. They seem to resonate more with the outcomes.
I agree.
And yeah, and actually last year at PPS, I met a bunch of people that were talking about all this, and this data that we were just talking about that I share with Blue Cross. I met a bunch of people last year that were talking about how we should publish this. And so that actually, what I worked on the last 12 months is we actually submitted a grant application to the NIH. I think it's called this Small Business Innovative Grant, Research Grant. So we actually got approved for that. So we're going to be the first randomized controlled trial or study for back pain patients who are using RTM. And that's going to start in 2026. So I'm super pumped about that as well. That's going to help us really solidify this. We'll publish that at the end. It'll be a pretty long-term trial looking at a lot of patients. I mean, we've got the data I submitted to Blue Cross was about 2,600 patients that we showed that, that's a pretty large sample size, but we're going to have like 10, 15, 20,000 people that we'll be able to look at and say, okay, here's what this shows. And we're also going to do, one of the things I worry about with RTM is that the insurance companies would say, well, okay, so it helps the patient. The outcomes data is there. That's great. But we're also paying more. Let's say we're paying on average $360 more per plan of care. Is it worth it? And so we're going to actually include this cost, analysis to look
I
at,
love it.
are these people actually saving money in the long, like, so with
Right.
back pain, are they avoiding injections? Are they avoiding
Right.
MRIs? Are they avoiding surgery? And if so, what's the cost, savings ratio that can really prove that we're doing a good job?
Yeah, that's great. I really like that finish part because that's what, you know, and this is what I found, and we know this to be true, is we all will stand in front of God and country and say, I do this. And then when it's prove it, which everything you're talking about, prove it all the way to the end, that
Right.
last step, right? Okay, you're going to spend $326 more per patient. And the ROI, I'm making shit up, is 2 times, right? So you're going to
Yeah.
save 10K, 9K for every 3,000 you spend, right?
Right. Right. And I'm like, to me too, I mean, you go back to the beginning of my career, like research is painful. I do have no
Dude,
desire to do
I
research.
know.
That's why
That's
I'm not in the,
hilarious.
in the
Yeah.
academic setting, but here I am like now so driven to really to go down that path because again, it goes back to one of the things I've always really believed in, which is education is really what we're doing. We're teaching
Yeah,
people
that's
how to,
interesting circling back to that. And
right.
right. And right, you know, education, you think about school, you don't just give kids something and check in 2 weeks later with them, right? I mean, kids, you know what I mean, school and things like that, whatever level it is.
Well, really,
Wow.
I think too, like I've learned a lot, like, I used to think marketing was terrible as well. Marketing and sales were like, terrible
Dude,
things
so
even to
did I,
say.
and here I am.
Yeah.
I was like, no,
Right.
it doesn't apply here. It was this battle, Andrew, of this doesn't apply here, right? And
But in
moving.
reality, it's just education, right? And so like it's really what we're doing to patients each time they come in, we're helping them, right? And then what we're doing is we're really trying to sell them the idea that this is going to
100%.
help them even more if they come back again, right?
100%.
And then and oh, by the way, when you're not with me, I'm again trying to sell the idea to them that if you engage with me when you're not here through the information I'm sharing with you in this engagement tool, this app, you're going to do better, right? So you're constantly marketing and selling to people, and I think that grant and the data, all that, that's really it's really marketing is what it is, right? And I mean, I know that sounds weird to a lot of people that are listening. Marketing is really just education, and if you do a really good job at that, then the sales process is
You are
so much
correct.
easier, right? It's like you don't even have to sell because the person already like goes, oh yeah, the study shows that this helps, right? I mean that's the idea, at least that
That's
I'm
awesome.
thinking.
Hey, just for context, right? So what Andrew just said, I want to repeat this and correct me, right? If if you're doing good, and just bear with me, good marketing, then the selling becomes easier. And we all know it's so funny because all PTs say they hate selling, even though they're doing it.
Mhm.
So let's make it easier for them. By the way, I do the same thing with the front desk. I say, the easiest way to get your front desk to get more people on the schedule who are going to show up, do better marketing, right? That's
Right,
what I tell everybody. Get
right.
get a better, clearer message. And that's what you guys are doing. And and you know what else I like? Everybody goes on the app in your practice, correct?
Yep, all the patients. Yep,
Yeah.
all staff, all patients, everybody's engaged.
I'm just going to leave that there. Everybody goes on the app regardless. It isn't what we get paid for. It's everybody goes on the
Right.
app.
And we were doing that. I mean, that
Right.
was part of, and I actually found it really, and I sympathize with a lot of these companies that I help onboard this. Going back to the beginning of us before RTM, again, 2016, 17, somewhere in that area, I was really surprised at how difficult it was to get all my providers on board with this, right? And so, and I back then I even incentivized them in my pay structure. So I was looking at that going, okay, if you have 70% of your patients that are in here, 80%, you're going to get, X amount of dollars more. So but I was really surprised and I'd be honest, frustrated. And so I see that still happening a lot with
Yeah,
people that we're
100%.
working with, where
100%. Yeah.
it's more work for them. They don't, what's in it for me? It's like, and I don't think everybody's as driven to, provide that level of care and service for their patients. But I think that as time goes on, that hopefully this becomes, I would like this to become standard practice.
No, 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 no,
Like
no, 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 no. It has to become standard
I think it
practice,
has to
Andrew.
be, right?
Yeah, it has to. It has to.
Like
And
like imagine
you
if you
don't,
only got paid, yeah,
yeah,
if you only got paid for the outcome, that would be a game changer, right? Like think of a mechanic. A mechanic doesn't get paid for the work that they do. They get paid for the outcome that the
yeah,
car is
because if
working
it's
now.
still knocking, you bring it back and they don't charge you
Right.
more, right? That
Right.
noise, that issue.
And yet we don't operate that way. And so um I think and again, that's what that new Medicare program to me on the surface appears to be saying, like, look, we'll hopefully pay you more or pay you in this new arrangement, based on the outcomes you're getting instead of the fees that you're providing or the services you're
Well,
providing.
it looks pretty straight. What I found a great blog I still need to read completely. And there's a lot of people out there, and don't just look in the PT literature, right? I'm looking across all the healthcare people I follow. Except what I like is it's usually more broad, meaning they're talking about the whole concept. And then I like reading those and going, okay, where do we fit in, right?
Right. I think
So,
what they've been, it looks like it's primary care, chronic care management,
yeah.
like RPM. But again, everything's been like we're about 4 to 5 years behind them, and they had RPM before we did, and so then now we've got it. And so it seems like all that is kind of moving in that direction. I wish they would just rip the Band-Aid off, though. To be honest, like it's just so ridiculous.
Well, I mean, look how long it took you to get Blue Cross. And the cool thing with your story is you said it, and I'm going to call it your persistency with it. You're like, no, we have it. Okay, show us the data. Okay, here's some data. No, that's not going to work. Okay, well, what is going to work? Okay. So then you kept going. You didn't go, fuck it. We're not going to
Which is
do
what
it.
they want. I think they want to delay and frustrate and
Well, yeah,
confuse and then
correct,
give up,
correct.
right?
And so, right. So the delay and frustration is what they want everybody to do. And you're like,
Hmm.
no, that's cool. Let me go get it for you. Right. And your persistency with that is going to actually drive this forward. Just like that. When's that study due out, my man? The low
So
back
we'll
pain study.
begin in July of 26, and so it's going to be. I think it's a 2-year deal, so it's going to be. Now they might be ready before then, but that's kind of what they're giving us for a parameter of grant funding.
Cool. I'll be sitting
Yeah.
around waiting for that for sure. But we can say, right, so there are studies out there, not as large, but there are
Hmm.
studies out there to show on the front end. I don't know if they exist to show that downstream. That's going to be huge, dude, right? What is the actual cost? Not only delivering the outcome, but is it delivering what I call keeping people out of the system, right? Is it going to
Right.
deliver that? And we claim that a lot, but yet nobody seems to come forward
There
regularly
was a
and
good
show it.
one on. There was like the one that the APTA published maybe 5 years ago, the Moran study,
Yeah,
and it was looking at Medicare and back pain patients, and
yeah,
that was kind of cool. Like basically saying like, look, the more visits the patient had up to I think 18,
yeah,
it showed that the overall cost of their care in the system was less, and I think it was about $7,500 less.
yeah.
So it's like, man,
We'll
that's a
multiply that
powerful.
by 81% of the population, right?
Right, right. But that wasn't even really a that was a independent,
Yeah,
that wasn't really a what you would consider like peer reviewed, randomized, controlled. I mean, so there's flaws there, right? It was a paid for study that was done by an independent group.
yeah,
But still powerful stuff. So I think that's kind of what we're looking for is to really show like the impact that this can make. And then then the insurance companies get that, they're going to say, well, you need to do this now, right? I mean,
right.
why wouldn't you?
There you go. And then,
Which
like,
is sad that we have to do that, but I mean,
well, it's that's what I love about your story, Andrew, and that's why I like getting you on here is all these parts because right, everybody's now, hey, RTM. So I got on, I can't remember if you were one of the panelists, but I was on a webinar and there were
mhm,
like 3 panelists for RTM.
mhm.
And I'm watching the comments. So the panel comes on, everybody starts talking RTM, and I watched like 4,000 comments roll through where 3,000 had to do with billing and codes. So these were people who had no idea what RTM was, and all they asked for was codes and billing and what can I do with this? Because I want to go back to engagement, your team engagement, Andrew. I want to go into that a little further because I run into this everywhere.
Well, and you can see it in the data, right? So you can look at the codes in the last 2 years, what has been produced. Like,
Yeah, that
so I
that
think,
Peterson report, is that where it
yeah,
showed it? Yeah.
and it's like the codes tell the story, the data tells the story, right? So the majority of the codes are the first two, 98975,
That
98977,
means
which
they
are
got people on the app
they set it
and
up.
what they engaged them once.
No, they did the monthly device supply codes. Uh, that means that the software was sending data 16 times in a month back and forth between the patient. So the patient was engaging. Then, so those are the two. The heaviest one is a setup code. by
Right.
far,
Yeah.
which tells you they're setting it up and then doing nothing. Number two is the monthly device supply code, but then the least amount, it was like less than 1%, were the monitoring timed codes, which really should be called engagement between the patient and the provider, right? That's what it should, that's the key. Like the
I got
communication
you.
that was happening when the patient wasn't with you, the work that you were doing as a provider to monitor and communicate with the patient or the doctor or whatever. Anything. I saw a patient at the grocery store a couple weeks ago, and on a Sunday, we talked for 20 minutes about their home program. I was even demonstrating an exercise at Meyer. I came back Monday morning and I logged that 20 minutes as my monitoring time,
Fuck,
because
that's
that is
awesome.
time I should be paid
That's
for, right?
awesome.
But that's not what's happening right now. And if you fast forward 5 years in the RPM world, they're doing the same thing, and they're actually cracking down and auditing people now. And they're saying, like, look, you are supposed to be doing all of these things, not just giving people technology and then never looking at it. Right? That's not really the spirit. And so I think that's gonna happen here too. And
Like that. I like that example. So the setup code, the data transfer code, but then the actual, I love how you describe that. And I'm going to call it that, the engagement code
that's what it
just,
should be, right? It's
just
like
falls off the
monitoring.
cliff, right?
Yeah, yeah. Like think it just doesn't, the names don't match right. And then if you look at the setup codes, I think Gowanda just posted all these CMS, like the last 4 years of codes for everything in PT. So I took it when I spoke at PPS last month. I took this chart and I just narrowed it down to RTM and then eval codes. There was like 3.8 million eval codes that were done for Medicare patients. And it ended up being, and then you compare that to the setup codes. So how many people? I think it was like 53,000 people got set up on RTM last year. So it's like 1.6% of patients. The math is, I remember it's on my chart, but 1.6% of people are actually getting RTM right now compared to all the people that are getting evaluated. And that's just Medicare. And so the adoption has been really slow. And then when we are adopting it, we're not doing it right. And I think my theory is that it's just like back in, remember when whatever year that was, 2008, when they said, oh, all healthcare providers have to go electronic.
Mm-hmm.
And you saw all these electronic health record companies jump into the market,
Mm-hmm.
right? And most of them were made they looked at the rules of the codes and they made them based on the codes, right? They didn't make them based on the provider and the patient. And we know that, right? I mean, and you're seeing
100%, dude.
some
100%.
evolution. Like now you're seeing, like, you look at like Prompt was there. There's a couple EMR companies at PPS that the reason they're so popular is because they are spending more time finding out what providers want,
Yeah, correct.
right?
Correct.
And so, I mean, how many years has that been? It's almost 20 years ago that rule came out, right? And so you go, my gosh, like, and I think the same thing's happening with RTM. You have these companies, big corporate companies that are jumping into RTM who, like, there's one education company, right? Like they were education CEUs and now they jump into RTM. And then you have another big one that's like owned by the insurance company, or it was. And you go, well, that's crazy to me. Like, that's so crazy that an insurance company would pivot and go, we're going to jump into this game so that we can extract money from ourselves and from Medicare. And like, that's wild, right? Like, so the intentions there are not, hey, what does the patient think here? What does the provider think? How are they going to engage with this tool? And what should we be doing? You know, I kind of see that, and that's where we come in and say, hey, I think if you're looking for somebody who's really going to be a high touch, you're going to do it the right way, where you're going to actually spend time engaging and communicating and all that stuff, and getting your patients to be happy. That's what we're trying to do.
Yeah, I see. So I call that culture. So, and you've alluded to this a couple times. I want to go this route. I've heard these leaders of very large groups go, well, we're going to bring this in. We're going to, we're going to let the providers decide. And I'm like, no, no, it has to come from the top down. And if you make a blanket announcement that, you guys can use this if you want, it's not going to get used.
No.
And so I really look at the culture, Andrew, and I've been on some front end sales calls for
Hmm.
RTM, right? Early calls.
Hmm.
And I've gotten off of them going, this this is an uphill battle. I don't know how much time you guys want to invest, but if
I can tell right away when I
yeah,
work
right,
with
you
somebody,
can,
even if
and
they've
you
signed up
hear
with
it.
us.
right?
Yeah.
So talk about that a little bit. I want you to, because what
Yeah.
I want the leader, well, I want providers to hear this, but I want the leaders to hear this, that this isn't a, hey, do this if you want. By the way, I've heard leaders say, well, I brought it on for a side hustle. And I'm like, well, fuck that. Nobody, I'm not supporting your fucking side hustle. Right.
Right.
I want to get paid.
Yeah.
So
No,
I've heard all
we've
this
had that too.
terminology.
We've had that a bunch. I mean, we had in the first year of signing, clinics that were working with us, and we've got an agreement with them, and this is why we put in a minimum. So we actually, everything in the beginning was, hey, like we'll do all this work with you, and the codes are produced, and we're gonna invoice you based on codes produced, and we still do that, but now we have a minimum of like $500 a month, and
Hmm.
that's because like you'll still see that where like the first month or two goes by and nothing's happening. They're not, oh, I can't get my staff, to do this, and they just don't seem to be, wanting to do this. It's like, well, think about this for a second. It's really an engagement slash accountability system, right? And the reason that patients 30% historically do their homework isn't because of them. I mean, partly because of them, right? But it's also because of our poor ability to have difficult conversations with them and have them be held accountable. Think about this too. The other stat that I love to talk about is 70% of patients don't complete their plan of care. Well, why is that? And again, it's
Dude,
because
that's
we're
the first
bad.
slide. That's the first slide in all of my patient
Yeah,
engagement conversations, front
right.
desk conversations. That's the first one. So we have
Yeah,
to own that. We have to
right.
start this conversation with Andrew and his company Movement RX and going, well, 70% of people don't finish a plan of care. Andrew, tell me how you can help me do that. Right? That's where
Yeah.
it needs to start.
And we suck at
Yep.
holding patients accountable and having the difficult conversations. Our personality type, I don't know if you remember, you probably have done the Meyer-Briggs. We all
Yeah,
did it
dude.
in
Yeah,
grad school. It's
that
like
was, yeah.
everybody's like top left corner, right? I was like on the bottom left corner with like one other girl, but like everybody else. And the professor, I remember, said, she goes, we're all golden retrievers. We want to help and serve. And that's healthcare in general, right? I mean, I think you could take the surgeons probably out of there. I think the surgeons are probably not in that group. At least in my experience, I think they're different personality types.
Anesthesiologists are definitely not in that group. I
Yeah,
always
right.
put them in a different group.
Yeah. So it's like, I think that it's really an us problem. And so
Love it.
now you say, oh, do you want to, this system's going to, basically force you to engage more and hold patients
These are
accountable.
the
How does that
core
sound?
issues we got to deal with, Andrew. This is the
Right.
core right here. Do you want the accountability? Yes or no? It's almost where
Right.
the sales call needs to be. Start.
Yeah. And then I would say the other thing is not only with your staff, it's not something that it's part of the culture of, it should be the part of the culture of standard operating procedures. But then on the other side of this, the other side of the coin is the patient, right? We don't ask our patients. And so why would you do that? Why would you say, hey, how does it sound if I make homework for you? We're going to use this really cool app. It's videos. You're going to have them forever. You're going to love it. But we're also going to track whether you do it. And we're going to call you out when you don't do it. And we're going to hold you accountable, right? If you said that to a patient and you say, well, how does that sound? Most people are going to say, gosh, that sounds kind of uncomfortable to me. And I don't know that I want that. I don't know if I want you to be monitoring me. Most people don't want to be held accountable, right? But my mom's a good example. She's a diabetic. And I said, Mom, why don't you just get one of those continuous glucose monitors? She had one for a couple months and it was actually, she was doing really well. And she goes, I hate that my doctor can see what my blood sugar is. And I said, but doesn't that seem like it's a motivator for you? She goes, well, I don't know, but I just don't like it. And they gave me the choice to opt out of it, and I opted out. And so in our culture, we it's part of our we start out with it's our plan of care. It is our we don't it's not a question. Now, of course, if somebody
Yeah,
tells
I
us that they
agree with all
don't,
this. And
yeah,
by the way, Andrew, the research is there on this because I've looked for that research on the patient side. So
right.
I love all of this.
Now, if they say no, or they say I don't have, if you have a smartphone or an email address or whatever, but if they explicitly say like, oh no, I don't want this, we're not going to disagree with
Right,
that.
right.
But if you start out with the mindset of like, hey, this is how we do it here. You're going to have the patients who do this have the best results. And, you're going to get a friendly phone call once a month, and you don't tell them like, we're going to call you out. It's like, we're going to try to coach you on this. We're going to try to find out ways that we can help you do more of this at home, because we know that it's going to help you. Studies show it. We know it. Our experience shows it. And so not only do we not ask our staff, we incentivize them, but also we don't ask the patient. We make it a part of our normal way we do things. And then they love it. I mean, like, it's hard to argue when you look at our reviews. That was part of my talk in PPS. I started out with like 7 actual reviews from Google from my private practice. And it's like, these are the words people are saying. And they're actually saying things like, oh my gosh, I'm so surprised that they would reach out to me and call me once a month to check in to see how I'm doing with my homework. I mean, that's crazy to me that
It's funny how
that
many
people will
people
call
don't
that
read
out.
their reviews and
Yeah.
and I'll do that. I'll pull it up and I'll show people and I go, why aren't you leveraging this? And by the way, I always say I play the game. Did they get better? I love the fact that my PT reached out to me once a month and it was great to have communication. And by the way, someone else is going to call you and schedule with you. That patient get better? No one fucking knows.
Right.
That's not the point. The point is, right, what you're saying, they like the engagement. Hey,
They like the access is what they like.
the
They like the
access.
chatting, the ability
By
to
the way,
chat back
that's
and
in the
forth.
research, Andrew. That's
Right.
absolutely every time a PT goes, well, I get this. And Andrew, you probably hear this 300 times a week. Well, I get this, but my patients, and
Yeah.
you're like, oh, here we go.
Right.
Here we go.
Or one of the big things we'll get is like when we have a remote PTA that we assign to somebody's account,
Well,
let's
hold
say
on,
in
hold on. You're going
Tennessee.
to go
Yeah.
back and explain this. Go one
Yeah.
step up. So,
Yeah.
so someone's working on your Movement X
Yep.
platform because we got to define this. It doesn't
Right.
have to be the actual provider assigned to that patient
Right.
reaching out to them, correct?
Right. Yeah. So we really have 2 options. Option 1 is we give you the software. You will train you, and you basically have somebody on your team who's the champion of that, and they're hopefully doing the engagement with the patient and they're all that. The other option is, which I recommend starting with, is, certainly the people that are successful, they'll transition to doing it themselves. But in the beginning, I would recommend we do it for you. So that's the big thing that I think therapists go, whoa, I don't have time for this. We had the same experience, by the way, in my practice when remember, we were doing this for years already. And so we had over 80% of our patients were already using the app. But when we came to the staff after that clinical director came back from Rick Gawanda's talk, and we said, all right, guys, we're super excited. We're going to get paid for this now. We're going to start monitoring these people. And you guys are going to start doing it. And we want to try to do at least 20 minutes a month, but we're hoping we can get a 60 minutes a month. And this is what it looks like. They right away pushed back and said, whoa, what are you talking about? And I said, what do you mean? And they're like, we're already doing it. They go, well, how do we don't have extra time. Like, when are we going to find time to monitor these people outside of patient care time and call them and engage with them? We don't have time. So I was really shocked by that. And we pumped the brakes right away and said, okay, we're not going to, and this is again, 2022. So like we were coming out of COVID. It was super hard to hire people, still is, but we didn't want to like make anybody leave. Right.
Yeah, well, but still, you were listening to your team
Yeah.
for lack of a better term.
And we just said, all right, let's rethink this. And so we actually were really lucky. We had a PTA who was enrolled in the transition program to become a DPT, and he had been with us for 5 years. Great employee. He was going on his year of clinical rotations, and it just so happened it was the same month we were doing this new program. And I said, hey, how do you feel about working? Do you think you want to work a little bit? Like, you can work remotely for us? And he's like, that sounds great. And I kind of told him, I'll pay you $30 an hour. He's like, $30 an hour? What am I going to be doing? That's awesome. And so then that's when we started training him. And he was our first engager, our first remote PTA.
So
Then
describe
yeah,
that role a little bit.
yeah. So that role is really him. The PT and the evaluating therapist in the clinic sets up the patient with the app. Very easy. It sends them a link in their text message. They click it. It automatically downloads and logs them in. So very easy. We found that was when we were doing the beta testing, that was the biggest thing with the patients. They had a hard time with their username and passwords and all that, older people. So the therapist sets up the home program. Right? They either record a video or they pull from a library of over 10,000 videos we've made in the studio. It goes to the patient's app on their phone. They can see all those videos. They also can rate their pain level each day. We track their steps. They can chat with us. And so once that is set up by the therapist, then the remote PTA that we started with, he is now basically looking at about 10 to 15 minutes a week. He logs in and he looks at this patient's engagement. Have they been watching their videos? Has their pain level been going up or down? Is their steps going up or down? Are they sending any messages? Do I need to reply to them? And that happens 15 minutes a week. And then at some point in the month, he then makes a phone call to the patient. And the purpose of that phone call is to just, hey, I'm calling from Superior Physical Therapy, and I'm checking in with you to see how your homework is going. You're using the Movement RX app, and tell me about it. And they know, he knows, like, they're either engaging or not, right? So then the idea is, if they're not engaging, it's to let the patient know that, it hasn't been optimal, but we want to really just know why. What are some barriers you're experiencing? Is it, and the number one thing, by the way, is that we found is, well, I watched them for the first week, but now I've memorized them and I don't need to watch them every time.
Interesting.
And I said, that's fair, right? But we still want them to engage. And so that's when we added the little feature that's called Mark is Complete, right? Where, all right, that's fine. That's great. Good idea. Just go in there each
Yeah,
day and just
go
hit
in
the
there and
button.
just tap it. Yeah, that's
And
great.
so we know, like, how your pain level is going. We know that you're actually engaging, and they're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. So we added that. But really, that's what the purpose is that time of monitoring is to answer questions they might have if they're chatting with you. Again, our current biggest problem with that is that the patient is sending messages to us trying to change their schedule. And it's
Oh
like, well,
yeah,
that's
yeah,
not what
yeah.
this is for. This goes right to your providers, right? So it's not a front desk thing, but we're trying to kind of figure that one out. But, um, well, then, so he's in PTAs, or the DPT program. He starts recruiting. We have way more time. We've got about 300 patients a month, so it's about
Yeah,
300
so then now
hours.
we need more monitoring.
So he recruits a couple of classmates. So we end up having three of them, which, weirdly enough, we still have the three of them. They've graduated
But
as DPTs,
they
but
were already in the process and they
two of
understand
them are
it and they
moms. They
just
had
yeah.
babies in the meantime, and they're at home working remotely, making $30 an hour, and they love it. But majority are PTAs. Then we have a couple peer groups that we're in
Now
nationwide, and
hold on. They're
yeah.
gonna document this stuff?
So
Sorry.
in our software,
Yeah.
that's another cool thing, is that there is no documentation requirements for the supervising therapist. Like traditionally, there's no SOAP note requirement, but the software, if you have a good software, it should be tracking all the time of what's been happening when you're monitoring. So they'll go in there, they open up the patient's chart, this little timer starts to go off, and everything they're doing now is considered monitoring. So they might be reading chart notes in the EMR, they might be looking at the data in the software, they might be calling the patient. Once they get done with their 10 to 15 minutes, then they just hit the stop button, and it prompts a little text box that says, hey, what were you doing during this time? And then our system, if it was a phone call, then our system knows that when they log that, they tag it as a phone call, and then it makes it so that those codes are actually eligible to be
Because
billed.
then the provider bills the codes, correct?
Well,
With the
so then yeah, you really have to wait till the month is over,
yeah, till the month's over. Yep.
and then we provide them with a report that gives them all their patient names and then the codes that are eligible,
Okay.
and then they have to plug that into, whether that, sometimes it's the EMR, sometimes it's the billing company, sometimes it's the clearinghouse, but they essentially just submit that information, those codes, but there is no documentation from a therapist standpoint. So really, it's like the therapist in the clinic should be making the home program, right? Setting up the app, and that's it. And then everything else in that package for us, the done for you package, is done by our remote team. And this is why, too, another thing that drives me crazy is, like, everybody right now seems to want an RTM platform that's integrated with their EMR, right?
Yeah, dude. God damn it. We're hitting all the I love it. All the bullshit.
And I get that, but it really doesn't, it doesn't matter. It doesn't solve it
It
doesn't really
doesn't,
do anything.
dude, it doesn't. And I keep
No.
going, you know, what a profession. Hey, I have a solution for you to get better results with your patients. All the other results, the other reports show, by the way, side note, right? People on these programs, on these patient engagement apps are shown to arrive more for regular visits,
Yeah.
are shown to cancel less. So you're not willing to drive arrivals, drive revenue, and oh, by the way, you can bill at the end of the month for it because it won't fucking integrate with your EMR. Thanks for calling. Bye-bye.
Well, and then the ones that, here's what I came up with at PPS. I said this to
Yeah,
somebody, they're
hold
like,
on.
that makes a ton of
So you
sense.
gave an update
Yeah.
at PPS, right? Last month.
Yeah, we did like we did 2 years in a row now. We've done kind of presentations on just what is RTM and
Yeah.
then the benefits, both function, outcome wise and financially. So just making a really strong case to
Yeah.
people, because we had about 300 people that came, and like, it's how many people know about it? Like half the room knows about it, half doesn't. And then how many people are doing it? Like one person in the room is doing it, and so you're like, okay, I really just trying to make the case that they should
Yeah.
be exploring it. And then of course, PPS they're pretty strong on like, you can't solicit and
Dude,
advertise. And
my
so I have to be
God.
very careful there.
I couldn't put
I
up
even
an
had a
email.
handout. I had a handout that gave everybody. I call it it's called the the physical therapist's guide to remote therapeutic monitoring. It's
Oh,
like a
good.
10-page document, which we can give to your listeners today too. I'll send the website, but I had them all printed and they had approved it. And I went to go hand them out, and the lady was like, "Oh no, you can't give these to people." And I'm like, "But you approved the handout. It's called the handout online." And she goes, "Well, no, they has to be optional. They can be in a stack here. They can grab them, but you."
Yeah,
And I go,
dude.
"But isn't the definition of a handout, I hand it to you?"
Yeah, dude, you might
So
want to define your terms better.
yeah, so I thought that was kind of funny, but yeah, just gave a nice kind of talk on that, and just trying to share, all the positive results that we've had. And, again, I think it's marketing, but it's really just educating people.
Right.
Really the only other people there were just vendors. There was 3 other vendors there for RTM. And, uh, but again, the EMR integration thing, I said this during the talk and it actually resonated. I think going with uh, an RTM platform that really is like more than just a software. It's this whole cultural, you know, team of people that are helping your patients engage. Um, I think it's equivalent to a patient that we know in the outpatient world going to the orthopedic surgeon's physical therapist after surgery, right? Because it's integrated in the doctor's office. And when I said that, everybody goes, "Oh, we hate that, right? We all hate that." It's not the best for the patient. It's the easiest for the patient, right? And so that is the equivalent. That's the analogy. Like right now, that's what's happening. And then what's happening is they're having bad experiences. Like the clinics are going, "This is doing nothing." I talked to some people, "This does nothing. It was not worth it. Nothing happened. The patients didn't like it. The therapists didn't like it." And we had a 12-month contract and we had to pay $500 a month. And you're like, "Well, why didn't it work?" It didn't work because it's not just about the integration with the software, right? It's about like, you doing it the right way? Is there a team to support you in it? Are you putting it all on your staff or not? And so that's another bummer, is it's like ruining it. It's like when patients have a bad experience at the orthopedic surgeon's PT practice and they come to see us 6 months later, you know, it's like you're training people that it's bad. And I worry about that as well. And then not to mention like the resources that it takes, we've certainly explored integrating with EMRs, and we've got a lot of discussions going on right now. The amount of resources that it takes and the money and the time that it takes from us to do, it really does pull us away from what's important, which is the patient, right?
It
And so
doesn't
we're
need
kind
to
of
be it
battling that a
doesn't
little
need to
bit.
be this difficult. It just
It
doesn't.
really
So let's
doesn't.
just leave it at that. I was on a call with a tech platform yesterday, and I'm like, I'm not going to say the I word. And he knew exactly what I meant. I said, "So
Yeah.
how does this information get from here into a," right? And he laughed and he was telling me, I go, "Because I'm not even going to bring that word up because I don't care if it does. I just want to know how you're moving it." It's, we, by the way, we started this way, Andrew, and I want to double back. We're our own worst enemy. And what I really like is all the sharing. And again, talking to you is, there's 3 or 4 bullet points here of you created this not because you could get paid for it, right? So there's this whole world of that. Then when you did find out, you were deep enough in and then ran into the roadblocks and were able to pivot, for lack of a better term, and make some changes and realize. And I want everybody to hear the other thing you said, because I think this is really important. If you're going to look at RTM to start, look at the support, the team that monitors this. And then everybody, it's interesting you said that, because I hear everybody going the other way. Well, let's have your team do it and then we can take it away. But I like what you shared about, bring it on and have the engagement from the other side. And you're almost easing the providers into showing them, because I keep saying, and you've said it, I don't think you said it like this, we're already doing the work.
We're already doing it. You're
We're, we're,
right.
we're doing all this work, and we always have been. And It's the other word you said, accountability. I don't think as many of us want the accountability as we claim. It's nice how you scream all these different things, and then when you're given the option, you're like, oh, no, 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 no. And I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah,
I thought
it's
you wanted to get
uncomfortable.
paid for what you do.
Right, right, right. Exactly. Because again, we're golden retrievers, like we want everybody to be happy and we want to serve, and that's great. But I have to convince them when I'm meeting with people that that's actually good for them, right? This is good for them. There's data, there's evidence this is good for them. So therefore, if it's good for them, if you really want to help them, then you
Y-
should be
y-
doing this.
I got to the point of asking people, management, execs, and even providers, describe to me how easier your day would be if everybody showed up who was on the schedule.
Right.
And then the next day, and then the next day, and then the next day. I'm like, what would you be willing to invest? And you're not selling your first child for the love of God. You're just, we're not even adding. I keep saying there's no addition here. There's no addition, man. It's
Right.
not addition.
I
It's,
agree. You
you
said
know,
something earlier about the front desk, you know, uh, and you made me think of something, and I don't remember exactly what you said, but I was thinking, you know what? In the summertime, we have about a 6-week waiting list here in my
say it again.
practice. In the summertime, we have a 6-week waiting list, right? And I noticed the behavior of my front desk. They are very motivated to get people to schedule their full plan of care because they feel this internal pressure that, oh my gosh, this person's going to be mad at me because we're so
Yep.
full.
Yep.
In the wintertime,
100%.
we don't have that volume. And then now I am struggling with motivating them to encourage people to schedule. And so, the volume really does affect their behavior, right?
Yeah,
And it's like,
absolutely.
but it's internally driven. So if you can kind of tap into that, I think that's an important thing to think about.
Absolutely, dude. And by the way, for the record, I put people on the patient engagement apps when they call in to schedule.
That's a great idea. And that can be done. And then our system is an admin can put them in the thing. The setup and education code
Yeah,
though,
right. Now, mind
for
you,
us.
right. And again, this is right. And this is where people, but I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
let's not give the PT more work, right? Okay. So Andrew, you got on the app. And by the way, I have the front desk team. Then when they check for paperwork and everything like that, Andrew, you already alluded to this. And before you had the app, I didn't know you, but I was looking to create something and
Hmm.
having these conversations very early on and going a one-stop shop. So I get you on the app, but your paperwork's in there. A video
Right.
introduction to your providers in there, right? You were talking about something. Oh, uh, scheduling. I get that part too, right? So let's just say those three core things. Well, if I get you on there early, you're in there, you see the paperwork. Wow, this is easy. Hey, that's my provider. You're right. The
Hmm.
learning curve. And by the way, you walk in and Andrew goes, so Jerry, I know you're on the app. You saw my video and the paperwork. We're going to keep using that to monitor. I
Yep.
mean, I'm like,
Yep.
it's a continuation of a journey. And by the way, my
100%.
favorite line ever, Andrew, is the front desk sells it is, by the way, Andrew, our most successful clients log into the app before they arrive. I'm like, watch the
Right.
fucking engagement rate go.
Exactly. I'll say things like, if you're really serious about
Yeah,
fixing
dude,
this problem,
all this,
right?
all
Like
this.
that's my eval. If you're
Dude,
really
I tell
serious about
people
fixing this
it's
problem,
not in what you give them, it's how you present it, dude.
right, right. That whole thing you just mentioned, the video introduction. So what we do is we have the front desk. We use like a automated email system, Active Campaign. So when they call the scheduler eval, we get their name, email address, phone number, insurance information. That email address goes into this automated email thing, and the first thing they get is a video from me. The second thing they get is the top 3 ways to be successful here. And number 1 is do your homework, right? But the funny thing is, a lot of people won't give their email address right away, and then they come in and they get the app from the provider and they get their email address. And now I'm telling my friend, hey, if you have missing emails each week, go back and look at the engagement app because they're giving it to us there. But you're right. If it was all in one place, then I wouldn't have to have these multiple systems. And so I think there's a lot of potential here with it doesn't have to just be the home program, right? This
No,
engagement
and
tool has a lot of
and this
options.
is why I love we have said that RTM word maybe 3 times on this call, and this is what
Hmm.
I love is you're the only person There are probably others, but you're the only person that talks about engagement, and calls it an engagement app. And it started as an engagement app, and engagement. And that's really what this has to be. And this structure, it's already built in. Medicare is requiring in their other programs. I don't know the names of all of them, but Dana Strauss has all this information, and she sent me it. One of the pillars of Medicare's programs is a patient engagement strategy. So back to everything you shared, Andrew, how do you get people on the app? How do you get them to participate, right, on the app?
Right.
That is a
100%.
patient engagement strategy. The strategy is not fucking get the app.
Right. Exactly.
That's
Get
the
it and
easy
let it
part.
sit
The
there.
work
Yeah.
starts like you started this, right? You talked about the first month, and then they disappear, and then the codes with engagement disappear, right?
Yep.
That's the
Yep.
easy part. Oh,
Yep.
that's why
Exactly.
I love when they go, well, we can't get people on the app. I'm like, you can't even do the fucking easy part.
Right. I know. It is. It's and that you'd be surprised at how many people do struggle with it. And that's where I come in and I try to motivate their whole team on Zoom, right? Or I've even gone in
Well, and that's
person.
the beauty here. So Movement RX, and let's pump this up.
Mhm.
Um, what I want people to hear is all this work, all this experience. This isn't someone who said, cool, I have an opportunity to make more money off of people. I'm going to take this remote therapeutic monitoring app and show people how to bill on it more. You never
Right.
said that. You never
Exactly.
said that.
Exactly. It's almost the opposite.
Yeah, it is. And I wanna point out, because everybody else, I get on that call, what are the codes? I see other people start talking RTM. Yeah, great. You finally have a platform for you where you can bill for what you do. And I'm like,
Yeah.
you just killed the fucking bunny, to coin a phrase
Yep.
from
Yep.
Swingers.
Yep.
You killed the
100%.
bunny, man.
So hopefully it comes around. I think the more we do stuff like this though, and the more
It
people
has to.
listen.
No,
Yep.
no, not hopefully. It has to,
Yeah.
Andrew, for
Right.
our future. If we want to be professional, God, everybody's screaming we're not
I know.
professionals. Part of me is going, show me why we
Well, I
should
think
have.
the only reason they did that too is just it lowers the loan maximum to 100
Yeah, I
grand, which
know.
I'm
I
not
know.
I'm not opposed to that. It's like Jesus Christ, I got guys coming out 200,000 and they can't
Oh,
even buy a
dude.
house in town.
Yeah,
They can't
can't
even
they
move
did
here.
buy a house, dude, already, right?
I
I
know.
call it
So
the mortgage. I ask
I
people,
think
what's
that
your
that's the
mortgage, right?
yeah. I think that's the intention. They probably looked at the salaries and said these professionals don't make enough to support this category for loans, and so we're flipping out about it. I understand it's an ego thing too. It makes you feel bad, but if it does help with the loan amounts and the school costs going down, I mean, sure the universities are freaking out,
Yeah,
right? They're
well,
probably going, wait a
that's
minute.
the good news, right? That's the good
Yeah,
news. Yet, I want to double back. If you're collecting $356 more per case over time, then there's more revenue. By the way,
right.
you did it because you proved the outcomes, because you showed, and magically everybody values physical therapists now, right?
And I'm
And
able
it's
to pay them
easier to
all
have these
more.
fucking arguments.
Yep.
This is awesome. Um, I'll make sure your link and everything is in there.
Yeah, if they go to mymovementrx.com, there is actually, if you just wait like 10 seconds, there's a pop-up that comes up and it will let you get the physical therapist guide to remote therapeutic monitoring. I think it's a great starting point if you want to read
Awesome.
about this. But yeah, certainly check it out. And there's a demo request on there if anybody wants to meet with me and talk about things. I love doing that. I'd probably do
Well,
5 a
and
day.
if you meet with Andrew, make sure you ask him about this journey, right? Tell me about the app, and now tell me about monitoring, right? Because Andrew's created such a low barrier, seriously, a low friction to implementation and delivery, right?
Right. We will do it for you, and then we will train you over time. If you want to take it
Right.
over,
See,
we'll
that's
help you
the
with that.
beauty. It's like we'll train you, it's not feed you to the fire hose and go do it. Hey, 30 days later, this ain't gonna work for us, right?
Right. Exactly.
Cool. Cool, cool,
Awesome,
cool.
man.
So
Well,
how
it's
was
great talking with you.
PPS? Was
I
PPS
thought it
good?
was good. Yeah, it was really good. I was actually really surprised. It can be pretty depressing, right? Our profession lately with the reimbursement and money and all that. I was surprised how many people showed up and how many people were still so positive
Dude,
about
this
us
was
and
my
our
number one
profession.
takeaway.
Yeah,
This was my number one takeaway.
yeah.
People were
And the
not
parties were great.
leading. Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. People were
Yeah,
not leading with the negative this year, is what I said.
right,
Right.
right. I thought
We
it
all
was
knew it
really
was
encouraging.
there. It was like everybody was showing up going, I can't keep doing the same thing. I was like, sweet.
Yep. So that was kind of my deal. I thought that was really good. There's just a lot of good energy and fun parties and
Yeah, I agree with all that. I'm glad you said that because that was my gig too after 34 years, right? And
Hmm.
I think that's a good sign. And thank you for all the work you've done in this space and continue to do in this space to show people that patient engagement is a strategy that actually wins.
100%.
Yeah, cool.
Patient for life, man. Right?
Yeah, right. Well, here we go again, lifetime
Yep.
value, but
Yep.
that's a dirty word. We can't say that here.
No, I think it's great. I love it, man. I love getting people to come back 5 years later, and it's awesome.
Yeah, well, we should probably have another discussion because that's
Anytime.
where the engagement tool comes in. All of a sudden, magically, someone's back on the schedule because someone reached out and they go, you know what, I need to come back in.
Yep.
And
Yep.
and again, it's not 12 visits and it's not something. It's, by the way, we kept them in our ecosystem so we could keep them out of the other system and we
Right.
watch that ROI go up.
We eliminated the idea of a discharge.
Yeah,
That's stupid.
That too. That's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good place to finish. I want everybody to
Yep.
think about that. Don't hang up.
Awesome.
Thanks,
All right.
man.
Hey, thank you.